Good morning, I'm Dana Taylor in for Taylor Wilson, and today is Thursday, September 11th, 2025. This is USA Today's The Excerpt. Today, right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk is dead after being shot while giving a speech at Utah Valley University. Plus, Poland downs Russian drones and invokes NATO Article 4. And today marks 24 years since the attack on 9/11. Conservative activist and Turning Point USA co-founder Charlie Kirk died after being shot in the neck while speaking in front of a large crowd at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah yesterday. Kirk's death reflects an increase in political violence in the U.S. In an extraordinary 4-minute live address from the Oval Office posted to his Truth Social platform, President Donald Trump spoke about his close ally and vowed vengeance for the slaying.
My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it.
Politicians across the political spectrum are reacting to the shooting death. Former President Joe Biden said on X, quote, "There is no place in our country for this kind of violence. It must end now," end quote. And former President George W. Bush issued a statement through his presidential center, reading in part, quote, "Violence and vitriol must be purged from the public square. Members of other political parties are not our enemies. They are our fellow citizens," end quote. Meanwhile, a manhunt is still underway. After several hours of questions about the shooter, FBI Director Kash Patel initially confirmed on social media that the shooter was in custody. He later said the, quote, "subject in custody," end quote, had been released after an interrogation by law enforcement. Live-stream video of the event showed crowds of people running from the university's courtyard, where Kirk, 31, was speaking when the shooting occurred. Poland's military said it shot down Russian drones that violated its airspace while they were attacking Ukraine. It was the first time any member of NATO directly engaged with Russian military assets since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. What does this mean for NATO's other members, including the U.S.? For more on this story, I sat down with USA Today Deputy World Editor Dan Morrison. Dan, thank you for hopping on the show for the second time this week.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the facts of this conflagration between Poland and Russia. What is Poland's version of the events?
Poland's version is that a large number of Russian drones crossed over into its airspace and fairly deep into Polish territory overnight. And NATO planes, that is, Polish planes and Dutch planes, scrambled and shot a number of those drones down. So the Poles and NATO and Europe see it as a very serious infraction with these Russian warplanes coming into NATO territory. In the past, there have been small incursions, small violations of the international border by Russian drones targeting Ukrainian targets. But this was something different. It spanned hours and it involved a large number of aircrafts.
Dan, is Russia's version different? What are they saying?
Different Russian statements have been that nothing intentionally happened. There was another statement that these were clearly Ukrainian drones that had violated Poland's airspace and not Russian drones, similar to other obfuscations that Russia has made when its aircraft have violated Polish airspace.
Following this attack on Russian drones, Poland invoked Article 4 of the NATO treaty. What does this article say, and just how serious of a situation is this?
Invoking an article sounds very serious, but clearly NATO and Europe are taking this very seriously. In this case, our Article 4 just elevates the issue to a formal discussion among the NATO allies about how to respond to this. It's serious as a matter of statecraft. It's not serious as something that's kinetic or will produce instant action on the part of NATO and its allies, the NATO allies, which, of course, the United States is the largest and most important.
Article 5 is, of course, the big one that foreign affairs experts cite when talking about NATO commitments. This is another significant article in the treaty that says an attack on one is an attack on all and obligates other alliance members to jump into the fray to defend the attacked nation. What are the experts saying about this? How close are we in Poland to invoking Article 5?
I mean, at this point, from what I've seen, we're not anywhere close to invoking Article 5. That's for true acts of war, as opposed to what we see here, which is something that was either accidental or an act of intimidation. But none of those drones were targeting Polish civilians or Polish targets at all. Those drones were bound for Ukraine, where, Russia has been at war for 3 years.
Dan Morrison is a deputy world editor for USA Today. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
A new federal lawsuit is accusing FBI Director Kash Patel of illegally firing top bureau officials on orders from the Trump White House. The suit, filed in Washington by former acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll Jr. and 2 other ousted senior officials, claims they were targeted for political retribution. Driscoll says he was removed after refusing to hand over names of FBI employees tied to the 2021 January 6th investigation. The complaint alleges Patel told him the Justice Department and White House wanted anyone gone who had worked on cases against former President Trump, saying, quote, "The FBI tried to put the president in jail, and he hasn't forgotten it." End quote. The 3 men call their August firings unconstitutional and part of a broader effort to turn the FBI into a political arm of the administration. The FBI, Justice Department, and White House have not commented as of this recording. Today marks 24 years since the 9/11 assault on the U.S., the deadliest terror attack in modern history. The world today is very different than it was back then. Here to give us some perspective on this is USA Today Washington Bureau Chief, Susan Page. Thanks for joining me, Susan.
It's great to be with you.
As you write in your piece, the world today is dramatically different in terms of how the U.S. is perceived globally than it was 24 years ago. Give us the cliff notes here, please.
With the terror attacks at 9/11, the world was shocked and the world united behind the United States. The new Russian president, Vladimir Putin, was the first foreign leader to reach President Bush to offer condolences and help, and almost every country in the world declared that they were on the side of the United States. Now, 24 years later, we are a more isolated nation. It is a lonelier place for us to be, and some of our old allies now wonder about our steadfastness.
Susan, you also write about a meeting we covered here on the Excerpt, which took place in Shanghai about a week ago. Tell us what was so notable about this meeting.
Well, the Chinese leader convened this meeting, and Vladimir Putin was there. That was no surprise. But the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi, was also there. And that set off some alarm bells. The United States has been cultivating India for years to be a closer ally. It's the world's largest democracy. And there we had the Prime Minister of India for the first time in 7 years back in China, holding hands at one point with the leader of China. One reason India has begun to gravitate toward China is a 50% tariff that President Trump has slapped on India.
Let's turn to the NATO alliance here. Article 5 of the treaty is noteworthy for its collective defense statement saying an attack on one is an attack on all. Give us some perspective, please, on how this applied in 2001 and how it applies today.
NATO has invoked Chapter 5 exactly once, and that was after 9/11, with our NATO allies declaring that they stood with us and they considered the attack on us also an attack on them. But you look at NATO today and you see European leaders worried about the U.S. commitment to NATO. European countries are increasing their own defense spending, and they're beginning to work more in concert with one another to support Ukraine against the invasion by Russia. That's all because they just aren't sure about what President Trump and the United States will do next.
Susan, the terrorism threat looks a lot different today than it did 24 years ago, too. How has this changed in the past 24 years?
The day before 9/11, most Americans didn't think there was a terrorism threat. Terrorism seemed like a very distant problem, and 9/11 really brought it home. Now we see terrorism as a constant threat, and it's led us to make permanent changes in the way we live our lives. But since 9/11, Americans understand that there is a global terrorism threat, and it has not gone away in the past quarter century.
Susan Page is the Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
would you like to do something for me?
Yeah, what?
Kiss my grits!
That was actress Polly Holliday, who played the iconic Southern waitress Flo in the 1970s sitcom Alice. The actress died in her Manhattan home yesterday at the age of 88. Holliday's turn as Flo earned her 2 Golden Globes and 4 Emmy nominations. And it was so popular, she even spun off into her own show, Flo. But her career stretched well beyond TV. She picked up a Tony nomination on Broadway for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and movie fans may remember her from Gremlins, The Parent Trap, and even All the President's Men. And later today, for Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard, wealth was never a badge of honor.
When Forbes magazine put Chouinard on their list of annual billionaires, he went apoplectic. He called it one of the worst days of his life. And he started demanding to his inner circle that they remedy the situation, that they get him off this list of billionaires.
Author David Gellis explains why Chouinard gave away his company in a radical bid to save the planet. You can hear my full conversation with David this afternoon, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern on The Excerpt. Thanks for listening to USA Today's The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your audio. If you use a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Dana Taylor, filling in for Taylor Wilson. I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.